On August 24, 1992, while Hurricane Andrew was devastating southern Florida with winds of 280 kilometers per hour, the Hernandez family simply disappeared. Miguel, 34 years old, Carmen, 31, and their two daughters, Sophia, 8 years old, and Isabella, 5. 4 people who entered their emergency shelter on the night of the hurricane and were never seen again. For 31 years, investigators, family members, and the Homestead community wondered, what happened to the Hernandez family? Where were the bodies? How can an entire family simply disappear during one of the worst natural disasters in American history? The answer was buried just 3 meters deep, waiting to be discovered. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries that defy all logical explanations, you're in the right place. Hit the bell to receive notifications, because today we're going to unravel a case that will make your blood run cold. And, I promise, the truth is more disturbing than any theory you've ever imagined. To understand what happened that terrible night, we need to know the Hernandez family. Miguel Antonio Hernandez had arrived in the United States from Cuba at 16 years old in 1974. Tall, at 1 meter 85 centimeters, dark hair always well-groomed, and a mustache that his wife Carmen adored. Miguel had built a life that his parents could never have imagined. He owned a small landscaping company in Homestead, Florida. He got up every day at 5:30 in the morning, drank his strong Cuban coffee, and went out to tend to the gardens of the wealthiest families in the area. Miguel was known for his obsessive punctuality. Never late, never absent. His clients said he treated each lawn as if it were his own. Carmen Maria Hernandez, born in Miami to Nicaraguan parents, was the heart of the family. At 1 meter 62 centimeters tall, with wavy brown hair to her shoulders and a smile that lit up any room, she worked as a secretary at Homestead Elementary School. Carmen knew all the school children by name, not just her students, but siblings, cousins, the entire extended family. She was famous for always carrying a worn brown leather purse filled with Band-Aids, mint candies, and small toys to comfort hurt or sad children. Carmen never left home without red lipstick. It was her trademark. Sophia, the older daughter, was 8 years old and had just started 3rd grade. Dark hair in 2 braids that Carmen religiously made every morning, Sophia was a voracious reader. She always carried a small purple notebook where she wrote stories about princesses who saved dragons, the opposite of traditional tales. Sophia dreamed of being a writer and had already published 3 homemade books that she stapled and illustrated herself. Isabella, at just 5 years old, was the opposite of her sister. Blonde like the paternal grandmother she never knew, Isabella was pure energy. She loved to dance and insisted on wearing a pink tutu almost every day. Isabella had the peculiar habit of talking to an imaginary friend called Señor Gato, a giant cat who, according to her, lived in her bedroom closet and told her secrets about the stars. The family lived in a modest house on Southwest 8th Street, number 2547. It was a single-story beige house with blue shutters, a small front garden meticulously cared for by Miguel, and a porch where Carmen liked to have coffee and watch the girls play. Every Sunday after Mass at San Jose Church, they visited the paternal grandmother, Esperanza, who lived just 6 blocks away. It was a united, predictable, safe family. No one could imagine that in a matter of hours, this perfect life would transform into the most disturbing mystery in Homestead's history. August 23, 1992. 6:45 in the morning. Miguel Hernandez did his morning routine as always. Cuban coffee, quick shower, kissed Carmen still sleeping on the forehead. But something was different that Sunday. The air was heavier, almost electric. The birds were restless. Hurricane Andrew had strengthened during the night and was now Category 5, the most devastating possible. Forecasts indicated that Homestead was directly in the path. 8:15. Carmen received a call from her sister Rosa, who lived in Orlando. "Rosa, I know. Miguel already went to buy water and canned food. We'll be fine." But Rosa insisted they should come to Orlando. Carmen hesitated. Miguel would never abandon the house. It was all they had. 10:30. Miguel returned from his last trip to the supermarket. The parking lot was chaotic, empty shelves, desperate people buying what remained. He managed to get water, candles, flashlights, and food for a week. At this exact moment, Sophia wrote in her purple notebook. Investigators would find this page later. Daddy came back with storm things. Isabella is scared. Senor Gato said we should hide. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The family went to Sunday Mass at San Jose Church. Father Rodriguez said a special prayer for everyone's safety during the storm. Carmen lit a candle to the Virgin of Guadalupe. She always did this when she was nervous. Margaret Thompson, who sat in the back row, remembers noticing something strange. Carmen kept looking back, as if she was waiting for someone. And Miguel. He was restless, jingling his car keys all the time. 3:45 in the afternoon. Last stop at Grandmother Esperanza's house. The 78-year-old woman begged them to stay with her. Her house was concrete, more solid. Miguel refused. He said they had prepared the underground shelter years ago exactly for moments like this. Esperanza would later tell investigators, "Miguel was strange. He hugged the girls for a long time, as if it were the last time, and he whispered something in my ear in Spanish. If something happens, look in the last place you would look." 6:30 in the evening. Back home. The winds were already reaching 150 kilometers per hour. Carmen called Rosa one last time. The call dropped in the middle of the conversation. 7:15 in the evening. The last official record of the Hernandez family. Jennifer Walsh, neighbor from the house next door, saw them entering the underground shelter in the backyard. Miguel was carrying Isabella in his arms. Carmen was holding Sophia by the hand. She waved to Jennifer through the torrential rain. Jennifer shouted, "Stay safe!" Carmen shouted back something that was lost in the wind. 8 o'clock in the evening. The last light went out in the Hernandez house. For the next 8 hours, Hurricane Andrew would unleash its fury on Homestead. Winds of 280 kilometers per hour. Houses literally taking flight. Cars thrown like toys. The lowest atmospheric pressure ever recorded on the American continent. When the sun rose on August 25, 1992, Homestead looked like a war zone. Houses reduced to pieces of wood. Cars piled on top of each other. And in the middle of this absolute devastation, the Hernandez family shelter was intact. The metal door was closed, but not locked from the inside. It was completely empty. How do 4 people disappear from an underground bunker during a Category 5 hurricane? August the 26th, 7:30 in the morning. The first rescue team arrived at what remained of Southwest 8th Street. Jennifer Walsh, the neighbor, was among the survivors who signaled to the helicopter. Her first question was, "Where are the Hernandez family?" Detective Marcus Rodriguez, a 15-year veteran of the Miami-Dade Police Department, was the first to enter the underground shelter. What he found would haunt him for the rest of his career. It was as if they had simply evaporated. There were clear signs that they had been there. Half-eaten food on the folding table. A card game interrupted in the middle. Miguel was winning. The flashlights were still on. But there was no sign of struggle, no blood, no indication of how or when they left. The most disturbing, Sophia's purple notebook was open on the last written page. Date: August the 24th, 11:47 at night. The noise stopped. Senor Gato is telling us to follow him. Mommy is scared, but Daddy said we should trust. Isabella is sleeping. I don't want to leave my notebook, but Senor Gato says someone will find it and know we were here. August 27th. Rosa Delgado, Carmen's sister, arrived from Orlando in total panic. She organized the first civilian search. More than 200 volunteers sifted through the debris within a 5-kilometer radius. Nothing. August 28th. Esperanza, the grandmother, told investigators about the last conversation with Miguel. Look in the last place you would look. What did this mean? The first theories began to emerge. Theory 1. They left the shelter during the hurricane and were dragged by the winds. But this was physically impossible. The winds would tear a person from the ground instantly. Theory 2. Kidnappers took advantage of the chaos to take the family. But who would risk their life during a Category 5 hurricane? And why? Theory 3. The family had a debt with someone dangerous. Miguel was thoroughly investigated. No debt, no known enemies. September 3rd. The first real clue. Tommy Castellanos, 16 years old, found Carmen's brown leather purse 800 meters away, caught in a fallen tree. Inside, wallet, house keys, red lipstick, and a photo of the girls. But also something no one expected. A homemade map hastily scribbled, showing a route from the house to a point in the middle of the Everglades. The map was in Miguel's handwriting. September 5th. Search teams followed the map to a swampy location 12 kilometers from home. They found footprints. 4 different pairs, including 2 children's. The footprints led to a point where they simply disappeared, as if the 4 people had been lifted from the ground. Dr. Patricia Newsom, forensic anthropologist from the University of Miami, analyzed the site. It was impossible. Clear footprints in the mud, preserved by the hurricane that hardened the soil. They just end. There are no signs of a vehicle, no signs of struggle. It's as if they had ascended. September 10th. The Hispanic community of Homestead mobilized like never before. Daily masses at San Jose Church, posters with photos of the family on every light post still standing. The reward reached $25,000, a fortune for the community. But as days passed without any clue, a terrible reality began to settle in. The Hernandez family had become part of Hurricane Andrew's devastation. 4 names on the missing list that would never come off. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. 1993, 1 year later. Homestead was slowly rebuilding, but the absence of the Hernandez family was a void the community felt daily. Rosa Delgado visited the site of the old shelter every week, leaving flowers and praying. Esperanza, the grandmother, was wasting away. She died in December 1993, whispering on her deathbed, "They will return." Miguel promised. 1995. 3 years later. The first sighting. Maria Santos swore she saw Carmen in a supermarket in Tampa. It was her, I'm sure. Same height, same hair, same way of walking. But when I approached, the woman looked at me with absolute terror and ran away. 1997, 5 years later. Investigative journalist David Miller from the Miami Herald published a 3-article series about the case. He raised a disturbing theory. What if the Hernandez family wasn't a victim of the hurricane, but instead took advantage of the chaos to disappear deliberately? Miller had discovered that Miguel made unusual bank withdrawals in the week before the hurricane. Total, $8,500, almost all the family's savings. Miller's theory generated hundreds of calls to the police. People swore they had seen the family in Texas, California, even in Mexico. All leads led to nothing. 2000. 8 years later. Sophia would be 16 years old now. Isabella? 13. Rosa Delgado organized a memorial mass. No matter where they are, she said through tears, they deserve to be remembered. At this mass, something strange happened. Father Rodriguez, who had aged dramatically since 1992, made a public confession that left everyone speechless. Miguel came to see me the week before the hurricane. He was disturbed, said he was afraid of something beyond the storm. He asked if God would forgive someone who lied to protect their family. I said yes. He whispered, "Then pray for us, Father. Where we're going, we may never be able to return." 2005. 13 years later. New theory emerges. Dr. Robert Hayes, psychologist specializing in family trauma, suggests that Miguel may have suffered a psychotic break due to pre-hurricane stress and taken the family somewhere where they all died. Cases like this are rare, but not without precedent, he explained. 2010, 18 years later. Jennifer Walsh, the neighbor, decides to move from Homestead. In the process of selling her house, she finds something she had forgotten, a cassette tape with recordings she made during the hurricane to document the experience. On the tape, at 11:52 at night on August 24, 1992, can be clearly heard voices in the Hernandez backyard. Carmen shouting, "Miguel, are you sure?" Miguel's response is lost in the wind, but then Sophia is heard. "I don't want to go, Daddy." And then, silence. 2015. 23 years later. A new generation of investigators takes over the case. Detective Sarah Chen, specialist in cold cases, applies modern techniques. Forensic analysis of the shelter using luminol reveals something that went unnoticed in 1992. A small blood stain in the southeast corner. Type O positive, same type as Miguel. But the amount was minimal, equivalent to a small finger cut. 2018. 26 years later. The last significant development before the final discovery. An amateur diver exploring the flooded channels of the Maui Everglades finds remains of a green car, same model and color as Miguel's 1989 Toyota Camry. Inside the car, nothing, not even serial numbers, as if it had been deliberately cleaned. 2020, 28 years later. Rosa Delgado, now 63 years old and fighting terminal cancer, makes one last public appeal. "I just want to know if they suffered. Sophia and Isabella, they were just children. I deserve to know the truth before I die." Rosa died in January 2021, taking with her the hope of finding her sister's family. But sometimes answers come when we least expect them. And sometimes the truth is stranger than any theory we could imagine. March 15, 2023. 31 years after the disappearance. Morrison Construction was developing a new residential complex 800 meters from the old Hernandez house. During excavation for the foundation, Tony Vega's backhoe hit something solid 3 meters deep. It was concrete. A lot of concrete. When they cleaned the earth, they revealed a structure that left everyone perplexed. An elaborate underground shelter, much larger and more sophisticated than anything recorded in the municipal archives of 1992. Captain Lisa Morrison, construction engineer. It was clearly prior to the hurricane. Reinforced concrete walls 30 centimeters thick. Ventilation system. Even electrical wiring connected to an independent source. This wasn't built hastily. March 18th, the first official entry into the shelter. What the team found made the Hernandez family case take a 180-degree turn. 4 skeletons, sitting around a metal table, in positions that suggested they were waiting. Dr. Amanda Foster, county medical examiner. Based on bone structure and dental analysis, I can confirm. Miguel Hernandez, Carmen Hernandez, and 2 female children with ages compatible with Sophia and Isabella. But the circumstances of death were impossible to explain. There were no signs of trauma, no broken bones, no evidence of violence. The clothes were preserved by the constant humidity of the shelter. The same clothes witnesses saw the family wearing on the night of the hurricane. On the table, an interrupted card game, the same hand that was found in the original shelter. Sophia's purple notebook, now almost destroyed by humidity, but with readable pages. The last entry in the notebook, dated August 25th, 1992, 1:13 in the morning. We arrived at the safe place. Senor Gatto was right. This place is better. Daddy said it's just until the storm passes. Mommy is crying but says it will be okay. Isabella is sleeping in her lap. The air is getting heavy. Daddy is messing with something on the wall. He says the air will get better. I trust Daddy. He always protects us. The storm noise doesn't reach here. It's very quiet. Very quiet indeed. Isabella woke up and said, Senor Gatto left. She's scared. Mommy is scared now, too. Daddy says that... The sentence stops abruptly. Analysis of the shelter revealed the most probable cause of death. Carbon monoxide asphyxiation. The ventilation system had a fatal flaw. During severe storms, if the external air outlets were blocked, the system would loop, gradually consuming all the oxygen. But this raised an even more disturbing question. Miguel was an experienced builder. How did he not notice this flaw? And more importantly, how did the family get to this second shelter, 800 meters from home, during a Category 5 hurricane? Dr. James Mitchell, meteorologist specializing in hurricanes, it's physically impossible. At 11:52 at night, the time of Jennifer Walsh's last recording, winds were between 250 and 280 kilometers per hour. A 5-year-old child would literally be dragged through the air. It's impossible for a family to have walked 800 meters in those conditions. Forensic analysis found more anomalies. There were footprints preserved in the hardened mud inside the shelter, but only 3 pairs: Miguel, Carmen, and Sophia. No footprints from Isabella. On the smaller skeleton, identified as Isabella, something was found that changed everything. A small cloth doll that no one in the family had mentioned before. A gray cat doll with a small note sewn into the belly. The note, in Isabella's childish handwriting, Senor, Gatto is real. He took us home. April 2023. The discovery of the second shelter generated more questions than answers. How could a family have built an elaborate underground bunker without leaving records? How did they get there during a deadly hurricane? And what did the constant reference to the mysterious Señor Gato mean? Detective Sarah Chen, now leading the renewed investigation, made a discovery that would change everything. In the municipal archives from 1987, she found records of a construction permit for residential emergency shelter at the exact location where the second bunker was found. The applicant? Miguel Antonio Hernandez. But here's the detail that made all the investigators' blood run cold. The property in 1987 belonged to a family called Morrison. William Morrison, his wife Janet, and their 6-year-old daughter, Isabella Morrison. The Morrison family had disappeared during Hurricane Andrew. A deeper investigation revealed that Miguel had worked as a landscaper for the Morrisons in 1987. He knew the property. He knew the shelter design. And more disturbing still, he knew Isabella Morrison. Jennifer Walsh, the neighbor, when shown an old photo of Isabella Morrison, turned pale. It's her, the girl who played in the Hernandez backyard. I always thought she was a friend of Sophia's, but now that I think about it, she was there every day, even when Sophia and Isabella Hernandez weren't there. The theory that emerged was impossible to accept, but all evidence pointed to it. Isabella Morrison had never died in Hurricane Andrew. She had somehow survived and been informally adopted by the Hernandez family. For 5 years, from 1987 to 1992, two Isabellas lived in the same house. The blonde Isabella Morrison and the brunette Isabella Hernandez, born in 1987. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, child psychologist specializing in trauma. Very young children who go through extreme trauma can develop extraordinary coping mechanisms. Señor Gato may have been how Isabella Morrison processed her new reality, an imaginary guardian who took her from a dead family to a living family. But this still didn't explain how the family got to the second shelter during the hurricane. The answer came from an unexpected source. In June 2023, a metal detector found a metal capsule buried in the backyard of the old Hernandez house. Inside, a cassette tape and a letter from Miguel. The letter dated August 23, 1992. To whoever finds this, my name is Miguel Hernandez. If you are reading this, then our attempt failed. I discovered that the first shelter has a fatal flaw in the ventilation system. During Hurricane Donna in 1960, the Santos family died the same way, suffocated in their own shelter. I built the second shelter in 1987 as backup, but I made the same design mistake. Carmen doesn't know. The girls don't know. Isabella, our borrowed Isabella, is scared. She keeps saying that Señor Gato wants us to go to the safe place. She remembers the first shelter where her original family died. If we don't survive, look for the Morrisons. They are in the first shelter since 1987. I couldn't save them in time, but I tried to save at least the girl. Isabella Hernandez is actually Isabella Morrison. God forgive me for not telling the truth. God forgive us for this last attempt to survive. The cassette tape contained 43 minutes of recording of the family during their last hours. Miguel meticulously documenting his decisions. Carmen discovering the truth about Isabella. The two girls, one biological, one adopted, playing while the adults dealt with the weight of deadly secrets. And at the end of the tape, at 1:47 in the morning on August 25, 1992, Sophia's weak voice, "Daddy, the air is getting heavy again." And Miguel's broken response, "I know, my princess, I know." Today, September 2024, 2 years after the discovery, the land where the two shelters stood has been transformed into a memorial. 4 cherry trees, one for each member of the Hernandez family, and a 5th tree for Isabella Morrison, who found a family when she lost hers. Detective Sarah Chen officially closed the case as accidental death by asphyxiation during natural disaster. But she admits there are elements that will never be explained. How did Miguel know about the flaw in the first shelter? How did Isabella Morrison, at just 6 years old, survive alone in 1987? And most disturbing of all, how did they manage to get to the second shelter during the most devastating hurricane in American history? Jennifer Walsh, now 67 years old, visited the memorial on the last anniversary. Sometimes, when I pass by there at dusk, I swear I can hear children's laughter. Sophia and the 2 Isabellas finally playing together in peace. Rosa Delgado didn't live to see the discovery, but her last words were, "They are together now. That's all that matters." The Hernandez family tried to survive Hurricane Andrew twice. On the first attempt, they saved a lost child. On the second, they all got lost together. But perhaps, in the end, being together was exactly what they wanted. The mystery of the Hernandez family reminds us that sometimes love is stronger than logic. Family is more important than truth. And sometimes people disappear not because they were taken, but because they chose to stay together until the end. If you were as fascinated as I was with this impossible case, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments. Do you believe Miguel knew that the second shelter also had problems? Or did he genuinely think he was saving his family? And if you know other cases of families that disappeared during natural disasters, please share, because sometimes the truth is buried deeper than we imagine.